Diamonds. What I'd like to do is go into Roman numeral 4 here, and we're going to talk about some of the economics behind diamonds and cultural significance. Economics, not even close to being spelled right, and culture. This could be a topic for an entire semester. We're just going to hit a couple big highlights right now. One of the first things to just kind of mention to you is it's going to be the difference between industrial versus jewelry grade. Both have significant value in today's market. Jewelry grade diamonds. There is a 100x price difference where jewelry grade diamonds, facettable material, is 100 times more valuable on the market. The industrial grade diamonds have value as well, primarily as an abrasive. Although most abrasives nowadays are actually coming from synthetic diamond sources. We'll get to the rise of synths at the end. Jewelry grade diamonds only represent 15% of what's pulled out of mines. So most of what is mined is truly industrial grade. Now, how does the diamond get from the mine to the consumer? Well, that is called the diamond. What is going on with my spelling right now? Diamond pathway, or the diamond pipeline might be the best thing to call it. I think that's the way the industry calls it. And what it does is it starts, we're going to do a kind of what is it called? A sequence, a flow chart here. So the rough gets mined by a big corporation or maybe just a small scale artisanal miner, and it gets purchased by a big dealer. And for about 100 years, De Beers was that source. So we're going to say purchased by De Beers. De Beers then would take that and take it to a sorting house. And at the sorting house, gems from all over the world get put into the same place, and they're sorted according to their quality, their quantity. Their quantity. Talk about rambling. Well, so there's a lot of quantity. That's why I got distracted. Look at this is an image from GIA showing De Beers sorting house a few decades ago. Just piles of diamonds organized based on the carat weight, the color, and the shape. From the sorting house, they can go to two different places. One is it could get stockpiled. That's if the economy is in a recession. We might just stockpile diamonds like in a bank. Or they can get sent at this point to a cutting house. The cutting house is where the faceting occurs. The cutting house will then sell it to jewelry manufacturers. And the jewelry manufacturers sell to your retail jewelers, and the retail jewelers online or in the mall are going to sell it to you, the consumer. Each step along the way, what has to happen? Well, largely money has to be exchanged, right? And people have to make a profit. And that's one reason why diamonds cost as much as they do. Now here we put De Beers as the main purchaser, and that's actually was the story for 100 years. It's much less the story right now, but let's just talk about De Beers for a little bit. De Beers and a monopoly. De Beers was able to create a monopoly from about from late 1800s all the way to 2001, where De Beers has to restructure. It goes private and no longer runs the monopoly. But it does run this monopoly for over 100 years. The monopoly. They were able to run this because their leadership were business geniuses in part, and they had patience to weather the storms. Because what they ended up doing is they bought diamonds and they bought and bought and bought. And what they did by doing this was they drove away the competition. That was one of their first steps they did. This was in the late 1900s. Well, what happens in the late 1800s? The early 1900s, there's a huge recession. There's World War I, right? Then there's the Great Depression. During all this time, the demand for diamond is not as high as you might think it is. But De Beers is marketing diamonds, and they're weathering this storm, and they're stockpiling huge amounts. In fact, they stockpiled so much during this period of time through World War II that they were just selling stockpile material for decades after the fact. This policy right here, De Beers called, they didn't want to call it a monopoly, right? They called it single channel marketing. Single channel marketing is the phrase that was used. And that just means they own everything. They control production, they control supply, and they're trying to control demand. And they were largely able to do it. Let me show you what single channel marketing looks like relative to what is going on today. So during that 100 years where De Beers ran the single channel, they bought everything and they pumped it all out. Site holders are the people who would buy the diamonds from De Beers. Well, in part because Russia comes online, Australia, huge new discoveries in Canada, De Beers wasn't able to keep up with all these new discoveries, and things just started to get increasingly more complex. They decided to restructure, and this is what the system is now, where there's a lot of different sources for diamonds in the market. Maybe a better system. One of the things, so when we think of De Beers, we probably think of this phrase right here, right? De Beers' phrase is, "A diamond is forever." And that's part of their marketing scheme. They spend over $200 million a year on marketing, in part just to what? Prey on the vanity of women and the foolishness of men is one of the things that they said about why would people buy diamonds. This was a phrase come up with in 1947 to push that your love needs to be symbolized, right? The miracle of love needs to be symbolized with a diamond. They largely created the engagement ring concept. Anyways, I'm fascinated by the genius of De Beers' marketing. Well, many factors lead to the collapse, one of which is blood diamonds. And I think we should start talking about blood diamonds a little bit right now too. So what is this? This is going to be C. And C actually doesn't start, we're heading towards blood diamonds. Let's just say this. Let's just say smuggling and theft. This ends up being a big problem with diamonds because they're very small and they're very valuable. So people are very easy to hide, or diamonds are very easy to hide on people's bodies. And this leads to a lot of theft. And what they call that in the diamond industry is called high grading, where you're taking out all the high grades via theft. So what was De Beers' response to this? Well, the stolen diamonds are cheaper than mined diamonds, right? Because the people could undercut the market. But De Beers doesn't want the market undercut, right? De Beers doesn't want market undercut. So what do? They buy, so they are going to go ahead and buy the stolen diamonds to maintain prices. They want to buy them, let's say this, to get them out of circulation. If they can get them out of circulation and stockpile as fast as they can, well, what? They're in control. So this leads to a process. This enables blood diamonds to occur. So big D, we're going to put big D here. Let's put the word blood diamond first because that has a exotic ring to it. Probably a better way to think about blood diamonds, and their other name is called conflict diamonds. And the definition of a blood diamond or a conflict diamond is that these are diamonds that are used to finance war, money laundering, terrorism, slavery, child labor, all sorts of bad things. That's what these are. So they're used to finance war, any kind of criminal activity, right, where there's blood on your hands. Money laundering, terrorism, Al-Qaeda used it, for example, slavery, a very bad thing. And this becomes a public relations nightmare. Public relations nightmare for De Beers. I mean, for a lot of other people too, right? But they're running the whole show. It shows up in popular media in a number of different ways. My boy Leo has a movie. Kanye's got a song. There's a lot of places where conflict diamonds have been brought to the attention. There's some stats about this, is that there's estimate that about 20% of all diamonds in the 1980s, all 1980s diamonds were conflict diamonds. And a lot of the story comes from Africa. Of all diamonds purchased in the 1980s were conflict diamonds. What ended up happening is that there were a lot of civil wars going on in Africa during this time. Basically, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Congo, Angola. There are these civil wars that are ongoing, and different parties, whether they're government, the established government, like in Liberia, or the rebels, like they were in some of these other countries, they are controlling the diamond mines. So there are battles for control of the country. And how do you fund that material? Well, diamonds are sold for weapons. Once diamonds go into the stockpiles at the big companies like De Beers, you can't tell where they come from, and so the guilt is assuaged. What word? How do you say that? This ends up funding. There's estimates like $700 million. $700 million of diamond sales a year were going to this through this time period, and there was. I mean, the numbers are terrible. It's something like 4 million deaths attributed to blood diamonds. So what happened? Well, there's a huge outrage in just the world, and there is a new policy that becomes established. It's called the Kimberley, there's an E there, the Kimberley process. And what the Kimberley process says is that every diamond must have a point of origin that is known. Point of origin known. And then companies will not buy diamonds from points of origin that are under war. It gets ratified in 2003, and it has been a big success. Apparently now, approximately 100% of diamonds are all certified by the Kimberley process, and conflict diamonds are not a thing. We could say that the conflict diamonds are essentially eliminated. We'll just say it this way, essentially eliminated. Now, of course, there's still high grading and smuggling going on and people forging point of origin documents, but this has gone a lot of the way towards solving the blood diamond process. Now, there's two more economic things I think to discuss. One is going to be MELI, and the other is the rise of synthetics. So let's go to which room we're on. Capital, is that E is next? E is going to be, we're just going to say MELI and the India cutting houses. And this is pretty quick, but what India has done, it has completely revolutionized the jewelry industry. And what they've taken advantage of is the fact that there are very many small diamonds that are found, and it's not economically viable to cut those diamonds. But in India, there is very low labor costs. I'll have to explain why I put that picture on there, right? Low labor costs allow small diamonds that were previously not economical to be cut. And so these very tiny diamonds that are used in halos, and halos are incredibly popular in jewelry nowadays, all of those tiny little diamonds there, we call those MELI. They're just tiny diamonds. They're tiny, they're like 0. What would we say? Most of the diamonds cut in India nowadays are 0.03 carats. We call those 3-pointers. 3 points. India accounts for 90% of faceted stones, of faceted diamond volume. Today, they run the diamond faceting, and the main cities are Mumbai and Surat. There's over 1 million people cutting stones, a lot of them very small. So that's a big deal in this generation of diamond economics. And then the last thing that's really rearing its head right now is the rise of synths. And we don't have to have this be a negative thing. Yeah, let's see, EF. This is the rise of synths. So they're not called synths. I'm just making a play on like robots and Isaac Asimov. But these are synthetic diamonds that are made by man. These are not simulants. These are actual diamonds that have the exact same, so we're going to say same optical and mineralogical properties just they've been made by man instead of by nature. So as natural diamonds. For hundreds of years this was attempted, but it was never successfully accomplished until in 1954, General Electric, right, the people that make our like washing machines, General Electric does a lot of other things, and they made diamonds for the first time. They did it in something called a high pressure, high temperature apparatus. It was probably this anvil setup, and this is going a little too deep here, but basically you have this system of metal that are all detached pieces that then can be compressed down on a material. Now this itself is not diamond. These are kind of plugs, we call them anvils, and those anvils then push on a like carbon cylinder, and you can push on it so hard and so hot that it reproduces conditions in the mantle to make synthetic diamonds. So this is how it was done. For many years, this was how it was done, and it was too expensive. So let's just say this anvil method, too expensive for the diamonds to make it to the market for jewelry. It was more just like a scientific concept. But then a new type of growth was developed called chemical vapor deposition is introduced in 2003. Chemical vapor deposition. It's just called CVD, which is not CBD. That's like a marijuana oil. This is CVD. This is how you make diamonds. And what you do for CVD is, I want you to imagine this high purity diamond film. So here's a substrate, and there is like this really hot gas with a lot of carbon atoms inside of it. Right, so those are like little carbon atoms, and they get precipitated down layer by layer as this film. Right, so it's a chemical vapor, right, and it's being deposited in these layers. And then you can pick these layers up, and there's a slab of a CVD diamond that was produced. This is just a single crystal. You can see how large it is. Well, you could imagine then what they want to do next, right? They could use this for industrial purposes, or cut it up into a bunch of little pieces and turn all of those into faceted gems. And this is where the future of the gem trade is going. It has scared people for a very long time. Like, I want my diamond to be natural, but what if it's going to be fake? Well, eventually, in a surprise move in 2018, the fall 2018, De Beers makes this announcement out of the blue and surprises everyone that they are going to sell CVD diamonds. De Beers announces that so you could imagine De Beers would actually want to like get rid of this and not have it, but they are going to promote and sell CVD diamonds. They call this Lightbox diamonds. That's their marketing name, and it's so recent to 2018 right now as I'm recording this that this is still uncertain as to what the community, what the consumer base is going, how they're going to receive it. I think it's actually pretty incredible. It takes about 3 weeks to grow a single batch of diamonds, and then this is what ends up happening. They can make them pink, they can make them blue, they can make them colorless. Here's a colorless example. And then what they do is they take a laser and they engrave this symbol, which is their logo, right underneath the diamond. You can't see it because it's so small unless you look in when the diamond's fluorescing under UV, and then you can actually see the diamond right there. So this is maybe part of the future, and we'll see how it goes. Well, that's it for diamonds. See you next time talking about something else.